And I did this for 6 hours a day for 6 days. I mean, pelvic clock in a hot tub, pelvic clock with your foot on the wall, pelvic clock outside, pelvic clock sitting. It was just awful. But when I got home, I had a triple attitude turn movement that I was never able to do. And it was because I had never been at the 7 o'clock of my pelvis. I'd never stood in that place. And that was very interesting. Of course, the teacher thought I had been sitting in a studio working on this for weeks. She said, oh, I said, no, I went off and sat in the Poconos doing the pelvic clock, which is where it was. And also the really interesting thing that happened to me, the surprising thing is that while I would often spend hours lying in bed working on the movements, on the awareness through movement lessons. And during that time, I started to have sort of artistic inspirations. I got up and wrote something, the best thing I've ever written, most creative thing I've ever written, coming out of an ATM. And there was no torture, I just wrote it. And then I started sculpting, and a lot of interesting things started to happen to me. And I obviously was coming out of a rut, and a lot of other things were coming available to me that were not there before. So today I'm the ballet director at ODC, and that job has turned out to be a great blessing, because I have it's not just about me anymore, it's about training my staff and bringing to this full program. And one of my teachers has been studying with me for 20 years, another for 10 years. One of my teachers was an Alexander practitioner who also has a very distinguished ballet career, and being able to really pull together a great group of people. And I've been doing experiments with teaching upper back work to 9-year-olds and 17-year-olds in the same room, and they get, oh wow, I didn't know, you know, they're really having a ball in there, and there's a lot of competition among my teachers to get the skeleton. How am I doing? 1 minute, okay. So that, and also even within that, I just obliterated the pre-ballet class and decided to replace it with Chinese classical dancing, because I thought that the gestures were more important. They had these concepts of having a really soft butterfly hand or a tiger mouth, and hoping that I would never see anybody lift their arm in a way that had no feeling ever again, and that there would be this interpretive quality to the gesture. So, thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so from Augusta Moore, we're going to move to Cathie Caraker, who is a BMC practitioner, which stands for Body, Mind, Centering. Thank you. And also a performer and choreographer in her own right.
Hi. Wow. You don't have to transcribe that part. My glasses on. Yeah, I think I want to start by just acknowledging that there are quite a few different ways that somatics can be applied to dance. And I'm not going to try and talk about all of them. I want to talk about what I do. But I think it's kind of obvious that it's really useful in technical training in helping us to find more efficient ways of using our bodies so that we can have longer and healthier dancing lives. And it's also being used to teach improvisation as a resource in improvisation, and can be really wonderful to give us different kinds of ways of being present as a performer. So that's all great, and I use all of that. And what I wanted to talk about tonight is how I'm kind of a research whore. And the term came to me today. I thought, well, what I do, what I love to do is deep play. Deep play. And the body is my sandbox. So I'm really interested in all of the different resources that we have right here, the incredibly infinite number of ways that we can focus in our bodies and play among all the different tissues of the body and movement patterns, and it just really goes on. And I never get tired of that. So the place for me that's the most juicy, I think, is the research process, and that's what I've really made my little niche in my teaching work and also in my performance work. So I have a passion for movement research, and I feel that the research process could and should be validated in art, and particularly in dance and movement, as it is in the world of science. And that research is really essential to moving the form of dance forward, continually evolving how we perceive dance, how we define it, and that in order to continue stretching the boundaries of what we feel that dance is and how we're working in the field, that we need to include research in the creative process. So how I came to this was that when I was in my early 20s, I went to Europe and I was bopping around, getting lost and doing lots of stupid things, and I, just by complete luck, I stumbled upon a really amazing school, auditioned, and even though I thought I was a little old to start dancing seriously, I was accepted at the School for New Dance Development in Amsterdam in 1981. And it was, at that time, still the modern dance department of the Theatre School of Amsterdam. And they were just embarking on a whole new direction with the program, where it had previously been a pretty straightforward modern dance training. They started including a lot of improvisation, and it wasn't called somatics at the time, it was called release technique. So I had classes in idiokinesis with John Rowland, who had been a student of Barbara Clark. It was basically the work of Mabel Ellsworth Todd, who wrote The Thinking Body. And studied postmodern dance. We had technique classes, but I spent a lot of time in the studio researching. So from day one in my dance training, we were expected to explore our own movement and to make work. So the laboratory aspect was kind of right there for me from the get-go, and I had a lot of amazing teachers, many of whom came from New York and were from the post-Judson era. So I was introduced to contact improvisation there by Nancy Stark-Smith, and that was how I came into contact with Bonnie's work, the body-mind centering work. I was introduced by Nancy to Bonnie's work and became really excited at the time, because I was starting to teach contact improvisation, about how BMC, with the developmental movement process that Bonnie was teaching, provided a blueprint for me, it seemed to mirror the process of learning contact improvisation. So I became really curious about how learning movement like contact could be a developmental process that we also see mirrored in evolution in babies. So that led me to move, after I finished my dance training, which was 5 years, I moved back to the States to study with Bonnie Cohen and do her practitioner and teacher certification program. And that was really amazing, but it was completely overwhelming because the training involves a lot of information. It's very detailed, it's experiential anatomy and developmental movement process. And while it's experiential learning, there wasn't really that much movement in the training. And coming as a dancer, as I was, and used to spending 8 hours a day in the studio, it was really, really hard for me to do all this kind of detailed anatomy. That was a lot of hands-on work and not that much movement. So I ended up spending hundreds and hundreds of hours in the studio researching again and looking for ways to integrate this information through my own practice of dance and improvisation and contact. And eventually, and this kind of, I think, helped me, it influenced my work a lot, because it really made me understand the importance of, in somatics, of balancing the sensory aspect of somatic learning, because there's a necessary slowing down in somatic learning of our nervous system in order to pay attention to new sensory information, and that's natural. That's a natural part of movement repatterning. But in order for that information to be integrated, we need to move. We need to do something. So there's the sensory taking in, and then there's the motoring out. There's the action.